Hello, this is Lromanosky from the Distinctive Collection in Calgary, Canada. Welcome to our lovely showroom, and I wanted to talk about which Vantage, Aston Martin Vantage is for you, because now we've got a whole bunch of them. First, let's go back to the start. I'll show you 2009 Vantage this is post facelift. This is with the engine displacement from 4.3 to 4.7 liters, 380 horsepower to 420. This is a standard car. It's got the standard wheels. It has the standard sills, which are just sort of rounded underneath the car. For 2010, they introduced a couple of things. We got the optional clear taillights, which are now sort of widely adopted across the Aston range. This car is a sport, and you see these double 5-spoke wheels, and then you can see the sills on this car. They call them N400 sills after the race car, the endurance car's aero package. So we've got a 2009 and then a 2010. It does look quite a bit sportier. And then they came out with a couple more Vantage models to fill in or add breadth to the range. And so for 2009, late last year, sorry, 2010, they introduced the V12 Vantage, and this took the drivetrain of the flagship DBS, the 510 horsepower V12 engine, and the carbon brakes, etc., and dropped it into the smallest body. So fantastic car, real visceral experience, loads of power, loads of torque. Only in a coupe and only in a manual transmission. There's no room for the semi-automatic in these cars. And that's a rear transaxle with a torque tube that rigidly connects the engine to the transaxle. And they came out with, this year, they just introduced it, another Vantage model. This is the Vantage S. So it basically is you could call it a V12 Vantage, but without the engine. So what they did is they took the V12 Vantage suspension, the carbon fiber front diffuser is the same on both models. The exaggerated lip on the rear spoiler, you can see on the 12-cylinder, is quite a bit more pronounced than on the regular Vantages. So they took the clear lights, of course, the rear diffuser, and you can see that it's actually a functional piece, aero piece, with air that's channeled up next to the exhausts for downforce. So this is the same on both cars. But the V8 S gets a tuned version of the 4.7 liter engine. It's tuned more for high RPM horsepower. It has 430 horsepower instead of the 420 for the normal car. The V12 Vantage is 510, and they came out, I think, most significantly, a new gearbox. And so this is a Graziano, which is an Italian company, and they make the gearboxes for Lamborghini and I think even one for Ferrari. So it's a state-of-the-art. It's a single clutch, not a dual clutch. The dual clutch one's too heavy, and it wouldn't fit in the Leith bodywork under a V8 Vantage. And this gearbox, I think, is 50 pounds lighter than the old one, 7 speeds, closer ratio, 20% faster than the sport shift used in the regular Vantage. So I understand that it's a notable improvement over the last one, with much sharper shifts, and of course the ratios packed closer together. So the V12 Vantage runs on carbon brakes from the DBS, which are gorgeous, expensive, and it also has the Pirelli P0 Corsa tires, so the track tire, which are good for about a second a lap. The Vantage S has different brakes. They're not carbon, but they're multi-piece with an aluminum hub to save weight, and then the durable steel face for the brake pads, and their new 6-piston calipers. So they're 15 inches in diameter. So this is a greater diameter than the standard V8 Vantage brake, which is a 4-piston caliper and an all-steel rotor and smaller diameter. The Vantage S gets unique. It gets the unique side sills. It gets the optional carbon strakes on the side, and the interior of the Vantage S again is unique. And they say it is taken after the lines of a shark. There you go. So that's a little bit different. And also you get the optional Alcantara steering wheel. This car has the piano black. If we look in the V12 Vantage, this one has the full leather interior, and these seats are right out of a DBS. And you can also have this in Alcantara as well, as with the steering wheel, although in this particular car it is ordered with leather. So the V12 Vantage Coupe is well, it's only in a coupe. There is no roadster, and it's only with a 6-speed manual gearbox with a clutch. The Vantage S is convertible or coupe, but it is only available with the new Graziano gearbox. The Vantage S is about 50 pounds lighter than the regular Vantage, and it's about 100 pounds lighter than the V12. The V12 engine is, of course, quite a bit larger and heavier, although part of that weight is offset by the lighter forged wheels and the carbon brakes. The wheels on a V12 Vantage are 9 inches in the front and 11 inches in the rear, and on the Vantage S they are 8.5 and 10.5, if I've got that right. So the footprint of a V12 Vantage is slightly bigger, and it wears the stickier tires. So I'll just show you the differences in the engine, which are quite profound. This is a 6-liter V12 engine, old school. It's really difficult to imagine how they got the engine that big in such a small car. And then we can compare that with the engine in this V8 Vantage. And just give me a second to open this up. And it's not even close to the same size. So the intake manifold on this car is powder-coated black, where it's an alloy on the regular Vantages, so you can tell if you've got a Vantage S or not. But that engine looks about half the size of the V12. So what have we got here, and what's the best Vantage for you? Well, for price, you know, a relatively base Vantage Coupe, the normal one, might sell in Canada with all the freight and PDI and et cetera, for about maybe $150,000 or $160,000, depending on options. A nicely equipped Vantage S, like this car, would be about $180,000, so about maybe $25,000 more than the base car. And the V12 Vantage, most of those come in at around $200,000. So if we're comparing apples to apples, so you can buy in at 160, 180, or 200, and it's kind of a difficult decision what to get. I mean, for sure, the standard car would offer the greater ride comfort. It's a little bit more docile. It would have, I think, slightly more torque at low revs. But the main thing is it would be probably more comfortable driving around on rough pavement. These two cars, the V12 and the Vantage S, would go to more performance-oriented buyers who were willing to sacrifice a little bit of comfort and compliance and noise, etc., for greater on-track and on-road performance. Both these cars have different silencers, and the bypass valve, which controls controls the noise, is tweaked for performance, and they're quite a bit louder. The suspensions on both are a little bit stiffer. So I'd have a hard time picking between these two. I think it would come down to which transmission I preferred. The latest version of the Graziano 7-speed is apparently excellent, and the best of its design on the market right now. And the 6-speed for this car is also really beautiful. It comes from the DBS. It's not overly heavy. It's still very precise and well weighted. So I think the cars would be similar enough on their own. But I think the gearbox would probably make the difference. The V12, and it's an interesting comparison, of motive forces. In one way, you have a relatively small displacement engine that revs high, that has a sweet spot that's in the upper end of the rev range, and then you've got a 7-speed gearbox that's been optimized to it with very close ratios to always keep the engine in the sweet spot. And here, you don't even need a transmission because it's got so much torque that you can just leave it in one gear if you want to. So this engine's happy at 1500 RPM or 2000 RPM. It's happy at 6500 RPM. Doesn't seem to make any difference. With a tuned V8, there's a noticeable jump in response, above 3500, 4000 RPM. So definitely, this is an engine which you want to keep in the sweet spot, at least when you're driving hard. So that's something to consider. The effortless torque from the V12 is perhaps a little bit better in the city, and the noise it makes as it goes from off idle and a slow burble, all the way up to sort of the screaming red line,